Why do we need to vote? Why do we need to vote for a school president on our school? Why do we need to vote for a councilman or mayor in our local community? Why do we need to vote for a PTSA leader in an organization or a CEO? Why do we need to vote for in our company? And why do we need to vote for our president in our country? So I think these are some questions that we ask every day that we are involved in. We are involved in school. We are involved in our communities where we live in. We are involved in our work, where we work, and we are involved in our country here in the US. So I want to share my experience on becoming a naturalized US citizen about 10 years ago. The process I went through was being a immigrant from the Philippines and applying to become a US citizen. And it takes a lot of process and a lot of preparation on becoming one. And I went through that, and um, I went through the process. And after about a month of going through the process, you get to an interview in the U.S. Embassy, and they give you 100 questions first to study before you go to the interview. They give you 100 questions to study, and when you get to the U.S. Embassy for your interview, they only ask you about 3 questions. And I think it's also important that it's also important for the immigrants that are applying to become a U.S. citizen is to get educated on registering as a voter. It didn't have that in the 100 questions on becoming a U.S. citizen. And so I think it's very important to address that, because becoming a U.S. citizen, you have the right to vote. And I think that's beneficial. A lot of people don't see it that way, but yeah, I do believe it. And I strongly believe it, that it is exercising your right as a U.S. citizen. You live in this country where it's called the land of opportunities, and a lot of opportunities becoming a U.S. citizen can be beneficial to us. And I think voting in that sense is just your right to explore those benefits. I think one of the problems when I was getting one of the problems that I saw after becoming a U.S. citizen was I was lacking on the process of how the U.S. election was. I was used of the election where my from the Philippines, and so I think the problem for immigrants applying for citizenship is if they do exercise their right to register to vote, they don't have the resources on where to go, what to do, or what do you need to register to vote. It might be easy as just an ID, but there is a process. And the problem to that is when you first establish your residency here as an immigrant, it's hard to find the right people or the right places on where to register and get educated of the U.S. election. And I think that a lot of the immigrants doesn't have the knowledge on how the U.S. election works, or even the local community on how to vote for a councilman or a mayor. And I think that's part of a problem for immigrants wanting to immigrants registering or applying for citizenship. And I think it's important to get educated to that process. And I think educating immigrants applying for their U.S. citizenship is beneficial to the government, because they're not only gaining votes, and at the same time, the citizens also are gaining benefits to becoming a U.S. citizen. And so just think about the benefits of becoming a U.S. citizen. You know, there's a lot of opportunity in here in the U.S., and exploring those opportunity is exercising your right to vote. And I believe that voting is part of our everyday life in school, just like what I said earlier, that we vote for a school president, we vote for councilmen in our local community, we vote for CEO in our business companies, and I think it's our everyday life, and we vote. Even if you're watching a show, you vote for who's gonna win. So I think voting is very important, and I think people should, citizen of the U.S. should exercise their voting rights.